Yes.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wanted equality. He wanted things to be fair, and he died for what he believed in. I'm going to recite a speech from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He gave this speech on April 3rd, 1968 at Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee. Something is happening in Memphis. Something is happening in our world. And you know, if I were standing in the beginning of time, with the possibility of taking a kind of general and panoramic view of the whole human history up to now, the Almighty said to me, Martin Luther King, which age would you like to live in? I would take my mental flight by Egypt, and I would watch God's children and the magnificent trek from the dark dungeons of Egypt through, or rather across the Red Sea, through the wilderness on toward the promised land. But in spite of its magnificence, I wouldn't stop there. I would even come to the early 30s and see a man grappling with the problems of the bankruptcy of his nation, and come with an eloquent cry that we have nothing to fear but fear itself. But I wouldn't stop there. Strangely enough, I would turn to the Almighty and say, if you allow me to live just a few years in the second half of the 20th century, I will be happy. Now, not the strange statement to make, because the world is all messed up. The nation is sick, trouble is in the land, confusion all around. But I see God working in this period of the 20th century in a way that men, in some strange way, are responding. Something is happening in Memphis. The masses of people are rising up, and wherever they're assembled today, whether they're in Johannesburg, South Africa, New York City, Atlanta, Georgia, Mississippi, or Memphis, Tennessee, the cry is always the same. We want to be free. We've got to stay together and maintain unity. Whenever Pharaoh wanted to prolong the period of slavery in Egypt, he kept the slaves fighting among themselves. But whenever the slaves get together, something happens in Pharaoh's court, and they cannot hold the slaves in slavery. When the slaves get together, that's the beginning of getting out of slavery. Now let's maintain unity. We don't have to curse and go around acting bad with our words. We don't need any bricks and bottles. We just need to go out into these stores, into these massive industries in our country, and say, God sent us by here to say to you that you're not treating his children right. And we've come by here to ask you to make the first item on your agenda fair treatment, where God's children are concerned. Now, if you're not prepared to do that, we have an agenda that we must follow. And our agenda calls for withdrawing economic support from you. Go out and tell your neighbors not to buy Coca-Cola in Memphis. Go out and tell them not to buy Siltus milk. Tell them not to buy Heart's bread. Tell them not to buy Wonder Bread. We've got to give ourselves to this struggle to the end. Nothing will be more tragic than to stop at this point in Memphis. If it means leaving work, if it means leaving school, we'll be there. Or either we go up together, we go down together. Several years ago, I was in New York City autographing the first book that I had written. And while sitting there autographing books, a demented black woman came up. The only question I heard from her was, "Are you Martin Luther King?" I was looking down right at her, and I said yes. The next minute I felt something beating on my chest. Before I knew it, I'd been stabbed by this demented woman. I was rushed to Harlem Hospital. It came out in the New York Times the next morning that if I'd merely sneezed, I would have died. Well, about 4 days later, they allowed me, after the operation, to move around in a wheelchair in the hospital. They allowed me to read some of the mail that came in, and from all over the states in the world, kind letters came in. I read a few, but one of them I will never forget. I received one from the president and the vice president, but I forgot what those telegrams said. I received a visit and a letter from the governor of New York, but I forgot what that letter said. But there's another letter that came from a little girl, a young girl who was a student at the White Plains High School. And I looked at that letter, and I'll never forget it. It said simply, "Dear Dr. King, I am a 9th grade student at the White Plains High School. While it should not matter, I would like to mention one white girl. I read in the paper of her misfortune and of her suffering, and I read that if you'd sneezed, you would have died. And I'm simply writing to say that I'm so happy I didn't sneeze. I want to say that I too am happy I didn't sneeze, because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1960. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1961, when we decided to take a ride for freedom and ended segregation and interstate travel. If I sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1962 when Negroes in Albany, Georgia decided to straighten their backs up. If I sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1963 when the black people of Birmingham, Alabama aroused the conscience of this nation and brought to being the Civil Rights Bill. If I sneezed, I wouldn't have had a chance later that year. In August, they tried to tell America about a dream that I had. If I sneezed, I wouldn't have been down in Selma, Alabama. See the great movement there. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter for me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. Like anybody, I like to live a long life. I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there for you, but I want you to know that we, as a people, will get to the promised land. And so I'm happy. I'm not worried about anything. Thank you for judging.
Excellent, thank you. That was